Hashtag the Galactic Council's misconception. First Contact Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes as he entered the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The massive crystalline dome overhead cast rainbow patterns across the polished floor where representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sectors. Today marked a historic moment. First contact with a species calling themselves humans from a small blue world in the Outer Rim territories. The Velthari ambassador had been chosen to lead this initial assessment due to his species' renowned diplomatic skills and their advanced understanding of primitive civilizations. His people had successfully integrated over 200 species into the galactic community, always through peaceful negotiation and careful cultural analysis. Esteemed colleagues, Zethkar's voice resonated through the chamber's translation matrix, automatically converting his melodic Velthari speech into the various languages of the assembled delegates. We gather today to discuss the evaluation of species designation Homo sapiens from the planet they call Earth. The massive holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing a blue-green marble suspended in the darkness of space. Continents could be seen rotating slowly, cloud formations swirling across vast oceans. It looked peaceful, almost serene from this distance. Our long-range scanning probes have been monitoring this world for approximately 50 of their solar cycles. Zethkar continued, manipulating the display to show detailed surface scans. Cities appeared, connected by networks of transportation systems. The inhabitants show remarkable technological progress for such a young species. They have achieved nuclear capability, spaceflight, and appear to be on the verge of developing faster-than-light communication. A representative from the Krex Dominion, a heavily armored species known for their military prowess, leaned forward in his hover seat. What are their military capabilities, Ambassador? Our experience suggests that younger species often possess aggressive tendencies that must be carefully managed. Zethkar's facial tendrils twitched in what his species considered an expression of dismissive amusement. Commander Vextar, that is perhaps the most interesting aspect of our findings. While humans do maintain what they call military forces, our analysis suggests they are fundamentally a peaceful species that actively avoids conflict. The holographic display shifted to show various human settlements and cities. Parks filled with children playing, people going about their daily lives, bustling marketplaces, and cultural centers. The images painted a picture of a species focused on commerce, art, and social cooperation. Our anthropological team, led by Dr. Miratel of the Scientific Consortium, has compiled extensive behavioral data. Zethkar gestured to a tall, ethereal being whose species resembled living crystal formations. Doctor, please share your findings with the Council. Dr. Miratel rose gracefully, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. When she spoke, her voice carried the harmonic resonance of wind chimes. Thank you, Ambassador. Our analysis of human behavior patterns reveals a species that has evolved sophisticated mechanisms for conflict avoidance and peaceful resolution. The display changed to show various human institutions and activities. Observe their cities, vast metropolitan areas where millions coexist with remarkably low levels of violence. They have developed complex legal systems, international organizations dedicated to maintaining peace, and cultural institutions that promote cooperation and understanding. A representative from the insectoid Zithake collective clicked their mandibles in curiosity. What are their military technologies? Surely a species achieving spaceflight must possess weapons of significant destructive capability. Dr. Miratel's form dimmed slightly, a sign of what humans might interpret as embarrassment in her species. While they do possess nuclear weapons, our analysis indicates these are primarily maintained as deterrents. Most fascinating is their concept of mutually assured destruction. They have created weapons so terrible that the mere threat of their use prevents their employment. This demonstrates remarkable wisdom and restraint. The chamber buzzed with approving sounds from various species. The Galactic Council had seen far too many young civilizations destroy themselves with their own weapons. To find a species that had developed such weapons, but chosen not to use them, was indeed remarkable. Furthermore, the crystalline scientist continued, their military forces serve primarily in peacekeeping and humanitarian roles. When natural disasters strike, these soldiers are deployed to provide aid and rescue operations. When conflicts do arise between their various nations, they typically resort to economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure rather than direct military action. Commander Vextar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His species had achieved galactic status through military conquest, though they had since been pacified through council intervention. This seems unusual. How do they resolve territorial disputes without combat? Through a fascinating process they call negotiation and compromise, Dr. Miratel responded. They have developed institutions like the United Nations where representatives from their various political entities gather to discuss issues and reach peaceful solutions. While not always successful, it demonstrates a clear preference for diplomatic resolution over military action. Ambassador Zethkar retook control of the presentation. Our psychological profiles suggest that humans experience what they term war fatigue. After witnessing the devastation of large-scale conflicts, they actively seek to avoid such situations. Their literature and entertainment media frequently portray war as tragic and devastating, not glorious or heroic. The display showed human art, films, and literature that depicted the horrors of war. Anti-war protests, peace movements, and monuments to victims of conflicts. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Here was a species that had learned the futility of war and chosen a different path. Most telling, Zethkar continued, is their reaction when one of their own military units encounters hostile action. They exhibit what can only be described as shock and dismay. Their media extensively covers any military casualties, and their populations frequently protest against military deployments. This suggests a deep-seated aversion to combat and violence. Representative Quinera of the Healer's Circle, a species known for their pacifist philosophy and advanced medical technology, spoke in her melodic tone. This is most encouraging. Too often we encounter species whose first instinct is aggression and dominance. If these humans truly prefer peace to war, their integration into our galactic community should be remarkably smooth. The discussion continued for several more cycles, with various representatives asking about human culture, technology, and social structures. The consensus was clear. Humanity appeared to be exactly the type of peaceful, cooperative species that would thrive within the Galactic Council's framework of mutual cooperation and shared prosperity. Based on our findings, Ambassador Zethkar concluded, I recommend that we proceed with formal first contact protocols. These humans show every indication of being a valuable addition to our galactic community. Their aversion to violence and preference for peaceful resolution makes them ideal candidates for rapid integration. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only Commander Vextar abstained, stating that his species' protocols required additional military assessment before such determinations could be made. But his was a lone voice in a chamber filled with optimism about humanity's potential. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Dr. Miratel approached Ambassador Zethkar. I must admit, Ambassador, there were some aspects of human behavior that our analysis could not fully explain. Certain historical periods where they displayed quite remarkable intensity. Zethkar Stendries waved dismissively. Doctor, every species has aggressive phases during their evolutionary development. The key is that humans have clearly moved beyond such primitive behaviors. Their current actions speak far louder than ancient history. Neither of them noticed Commander Vextar lingering near the chamber's exit, his armored form motionless as he studied the rotating image of Earth on the central display. His species had learned through bitter experience that appearances could be deceiving, especially when it came to evaluating potential threats. The commander's tactical implants were already formulating additional surveillance protocols. Something about the human psychological profile didn't align with his species' extensive military experience. In his view, no species achieves spaceflight and nuclear capability without possessing a significant warrior heritage, even if that heritage had been temporarily suppressed. As the chamber emptied, the holographic image of Earth continued its slow rotation, beautiful and peaceful from the vast distance of space. The blue world held secrets that the Galactic Council's sophisticated analysis had somehow missed. Soon, very soon, Those secrets would be revealed in ways that would fundamentally change the Council's understanding of humanity. The decision had been made. First contact would proceed. The Galactic Council was about to learn that their careful analysis, for all its scientific rigor and cultural sensitivity, had missed the most crucial aspect of human nature, one that lay dormant beneath the veneer of civilization, waiting for the right circumstances to emerge. But for now, in the quiet of the empty chamber, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware that it had just been judged and found suitable for membership in a galactic community that was about to discover exactly how wrong first impressions could be. Hashtag the contact mission. Diplomatic encounter 3 months after the Galactic Council's decision. The diplomatic vessel Harmony's voice emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. The sleek, crystalline ship represented the finest of Council technology, designed specifically for first contact missions with its sophisticated translation systems, cultural analysis equipment, and, most importantly, its completely non-threatening appearance. Ambassador Zeth-Kar stood on the bridge, watching through the transparent aluminum viewport as the small yellow star grew larger ahead of them. This was his 47th first contact mission, and he approached it with the calm confidence of extensive experience. The crew around him represented a carefully chosen sample of Council species, each selected for their diplomatic skills and peaceful demeanor. Ambassador called Navigator Yithal from her control station, her insectoid features focused on the sensor displays. We are detecting significant electromagnetic activity from the target planet. Their communication networks are far more extensive than our initial surveys indicated. Dr. Miratel materialized beside them, her crystalline form shimmering as she processed the incoming data through her species' unique neural interface. Fascinating. The humans appear to have achieved near-instantaneous global communication. Their information networks span the entire planet. This is encouraging, Zeth-Kar replied, his facial tendrils moving in a pattern of satisfaction. Advanced communication capabilities typically indicate a highly cooperative social structure. They must coordinate extensively to maintain such systems. The ship's artificial intelligence, a collaborative creation of 12 different Council species, spoke in its characteristic multi-tonal voice. Ambassador, I am detecting multiple artificial satellites in orbit around the planet. Initial analysis suggests they serve communication, navigation, and observational purposes. No weapons signatures detected. Excellent. Another sign of their peaceful nature. Orbital infrastructure dedicated to cooperation and knowledge gathering rather than military applications. Zeth-Kar made a note in his personal datapad. The Council would be pleased with these additional confirmations of humanity's peaceful disposition. As they approached Earth, more details became visible. The planet's surface revealed vast agricultural areas, sprawling cities connected by transportation networks, and what appear to be numerous recreational facilities. Everything supported the Council's assessment of a peaceful, cooperative species focused on prosperity and leisure. Ambassador, Navigator Yithal called out, her voice carrying a note of surprise. I am detecting what appears to be a small vessel approaching our position. It's moving at significant velocity and appears to be attempting to match our course. On the main display, a primitive but impressive spacecraft appeared. Compared to the sleek lines of the Harmony's voice, the human vessel looked almost crude, all angular surfaces and visible propulsion systems. But there was something undeniably purposeful about its design that caught Dr. Miratel's attention. They're attempting communication, reported communications specialist Frendar, a being whose species resembled living sound waves. I'm receiving signals on multiple frequencies. They appear to be trying various mathematical and linguistic approaches to establish contact. How wonderfully methodical, Zeth-Kar observed approvingly. Patch me through to their vessel. Let's give them the historic moment they deserve. The translation matrix activated, and, within moments, contact was established. The main screen filled with the image of a middle-aged human male wearing what appeared to be some form of official uniform. His features were pleasant, his expression calm and welcoming. This is Captain James Morrison of the United Earth Space Command Vessel Endeavour, the human said, his voice carrying clearly through the translation system. We welcome you to our solar system, and hope that our meeting marks the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." Zethkar stepped forward, allowing the ship's recording systems to capture this historic moment. "Greetings, Captain Morrison. I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council. We come in peace, hoping to establish diplomatic relations with your species." The human's face brightened with what their cultural analysis indicated was genuine pleasure. "This is incredible. We've dreamed of this moment for generations. I have authorization from the United Earth government to escort you to our planet and facilitate formal diplomatic contact." As the two vessels proceeded toward Earth, Captain Morrison provided a running commentary about human civilization. He spoke of their technological achievements, their artistic accomplishments, and their hopes for peaceful integration with galactic civilization. Everything he said reinforced the Council's assessment. "We've prepared a special facility for your arrival," Morrison explained as Earth grew larger in the view screen. "It's been constructed specifically for first contact scenarios, with representatives from all major Earth nations in attendance. We want to ensure that this meeting is as smooth and productive as possible." Dr. Miratel leaned toward Zethkar, her crystalline form humming softly. "Ambassador, their approach to this contact is remarkably sophisticated. They've clearly planned extensively for this possibility. Indeed, it shows remarkable foresight and preparation, another sign of their advanced social cooperation." Zethkar was increasingly impressed with humanity's handling of the situation. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, the Harmony's voice followed the human escort toward a large complex situated in what Captain Morrison identified as neutral territory. The facility was impressive, clearly constructed specifically for this moment, with landing areas designed to accommodate non-human vessels and architecture that suggested careful consideration for alien visitors. The landing was smooth, and within hours, the first formal diplomatic session was underway. The human delegation was led by Secretary General Sarah Chun of the United Earth Government, a woman whose calm demeanor and extensive preparation impressed even the experienced council diplomats. "We understand that joining a galactic community involves significant responsibilities," Secretary General Chun said as she addressed the assembled council representatives. "Earth is prepared to contribute to the greater good of all species and to learn from the wisdom of older civilizations." The negotiations proceeded exactly as Zethkar had expected. The humans were eager to trade, excited about cultural exchange, and remarkably open to council guidance on social and technological development. They showed none of the territorial aggression or military posturing that characterized more primitive species. During a break in the formal sessions, Dr. Miratel found herself in conversation with Dr. Robert Hayes, Earth's leading expert on theoretical physics. The human was brilliant, his understanding of advanced concepts remarkable for such a young species. But there was something in his casual conversation that caught her attention. "Dr. Hayes, our analysis suggests that your species has moved beyond military conflict. How did you achieve such remarkable social evolution?" she asked, her crystalline form resonating with curiosity. Dr. Hayes paused, a strange expression crossing his face. "Well, Dr. Miratel, I think you might be operating under some misconceptions about human nature. We haven't exactly moved beyond conflict. We've just gotten better at managing it. But our observations show extensive peacekeeping efforts and conflict avoidance," she protested. "Oh, we definitely prefer peace when possible," Hayes replied with what appeared to be amusement. "But humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. Our military forces aren't just ceremonial. They're very real and very capable." Before Dr. Miratel could pursue this concerning line of discussion, the formal sessions resumed. But something about the physicist's casual remarks lingered in her analysis matrix. Perhaps their evaluation had been too optimistic, too focused on humanity's apparent preference for peaceful solutions. That evening, as the council delegation settled into their temporary quarters, Ambassador Zethkar reviewed the day's progress with satisfaction. The humans had agreed to preliminary trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and even expressed interest in contributing to council peacekeeping efforts. "They're remarkable, truly remarkable," he told his staff during their evening briefing. "Their enthusiasm for peaceful cooperation is exactly what our galaxy needs. I believe we've found a species that could serve as a model for others." Dr. Miratel remained quiet during the briefing, her thoughts troubled by her conversation with Dr. Hayes. Later, alone in her quarters, she began a more detailed analysis of human communication patterns and cultural references. What she found in the entertainment media, historical records, and casual conversations began to paint a very different picture of human nature. Meanwhile, in a secured facility several thousand kilometers away, a different kind of meeting was taking place. General Patricia Rodriguez, chairman of the Earth Defense Force, sat across from Colonel Marcus Tank Thompson, one of her most experienced special operations commanders. "Tank, what's your assessment of these alien capabilities?" she asked, her voice carrying the authority of decades of military experience. The colonel, a man whose scarred face told stories of multiple combat deployments, studied the intelligence reports spread across the table. "Ma'am, their technology is impressive, but their tactical thinking is naive. They approach everything from a diplomatic standpoint. They've never encountered a species that might smile while sharpening knives. Are you suggesting we shouldn't trust them?" "I'm suggesting we should trust them exactly as much as they've earned, ma'am. No more, no less. And, right now, they've earned exactly nothing. Pretty ships, and fancy words don't mean much when the shooting starts." General Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Maintain current readiness levels. Keep all our capabilities under wraps for now, but be ready for anything. If these aliens are as peaceful as they claim, we'll all benefit. If they're not, ma'am, they're going to learn something about human nature that their fancy analysis missed," Colonel Thompson replied, his expression grim. Back at the diplomatic facility, the first day of formal first contact had concluded successfully. The Galactic Council representatives retired for the evening with high hopes for humanity's integration into their peaceful confederation. They had no idea that their assessment of human nature was about to be put to the test in ways they could never have imagined. Earth's leaders had indeed chosen diplomacy as their first approach. But, unlike the species of the Galactic Council, humans had learned long ago to prepare for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. And, when it did, they would be ready to show their visitors aspects of human nature that had been carefully hidden beneath centuries of civilization and cooperation. #The test. Deception revealed 2 weeks into the diplomatic mission. Everything changed with the arrival of an unscheduled vessel from the Outer Rim territories. The sleek predatory lines of the Saktar Raider ship cut through space like a dagger, its dark hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Unlike the peaceful diplomatic vessels of the Council, this ship radiated menace from every sensor array and weapon mount. Ambassador Zethkar was in the middle of a pleasant cultural exchange session with human artists and scientists when the emergency alert pierced through the facility's peaceful atmosphere. The Council delegation rushed to the communications center, where Captain Morrison's face filled the main screen, his earlier calm demeanor replaced by sharp, focused intensity. "Ambassador, we have a situation developing in orbit." Morrison's voice carried an edge that the translator matrix struggled to convey. "An unknown vessel has entered our space and is refusing to respond to hails. Based on its configuration and approach vector, our defense systems classify it as potentially hostile." Dr. Miratel's crystalline form resonated with concern. "Captain, perhaps this is simply another species attempting first contact. Surely diplomacy." Her words were cut off as the facility's lights dimmed and emergency power kicked in. Through the transparent walls of the complex, they could see bright flashes in the night sky, the distinctive signature of energy weapons fire. "The unknown vessel has opened fire on one of our orbital platforms," Morrison reported, his image flickering as communication arrays were damaged. "We're reading significant casualties. This is no longer a diplomatic situation." Ambassador Zethkar felt a cold dread settling into his primary consciousness. The Saktar were among the most aggressive species ever encountered by the Council. Slavers, raiders, and conquerors who had been driven to the Outer Rim after their defeat centuries ago. Their presence here could only mean trouble. "Captain Morrison, please allow us to handle this situation," Zethkar said, trying to project diplomatic calm. "As representatives of the Galactic Council, we can negotiate with these aggressors. Violence is unnecessary." The human's response was unlike anything in Zethkar's extensive diplomatic experience. Morrison's face hardened into an expression that the translator matrix could only describe as predatory confidence. Ambassador, with all due respect, you don't negotiate with terrorists. You defeat them. Morrison's image cut out as he ended the transmission. Within the facility, alarms were now blaring constantly. Through the building's smart glass walls, the council delegation watched as human military personnel moved with startling efficiency. These weren't the ceremonial peacekeepers from their cultural analysis. These were professional warriors moving with deadly purpose. Secretary General Chun appeared beside them, her earlier diplomatic demeanor replaced by cold authority. Ambassador, I need you and your team to remain in the secured areas. What's about to happen is not something you're prepared to witness. Secretary General Zethkar protested. Surely we can resolve this peacefully. The Galactic Council has extensive experience in conflict mediation. Ambassador, Chen interrupted, her voice carrying steel. You're about to learn something about human nature that your analysis apparently missed. We prefer peace, yes. But when someone attacks our home, when they kill our people, peace becomes a luxury we can't afford. The building shook as something massive launched from concealed positions around the facility. Through the walls, they watched as what they had thought were decorative landscape features revealed themselves as camouflaged missile batteries. The carefully maintained gardens suddenly bristled with emerging weapons systems that had been hidden in plain sight. Dr. Miratel's form flickered with shock. This is impossible. Our scans showed no military installations. Your technology levels shouldn't support such sophisticated concealment systems. A new voice spoke from behind them, deep, gravelly, and carrying unmistakable authority. Ma'am, that's because you weren't looking for military installations. You were looking for what you expected to find. They turned to see a massive human in strange mottled clothing, his face painted with dark streaks that somehow made him blend into the shadows despite his size. Multiple weapons were visible on his equipment harness, and his eyes held a cold intelligence that sent chills through the alien observers. This is Colonel Thompson, Secretary General Chun said by way of introduction. He commands our Special Operations Forces. Colonel, please explain to our guests what they're witnessing. Thompson's scarred face split into what might have been a smile if it hadn't been so predatory. Ma'am, what they're witnessing is the difference between human diplomacy and human warfare. We try diplomacy first, just like always. But those Saktar ships up there just killed 300 of our people. Diplomacy time is over. The facility's displays suddenly came alive with tactical information that revealed the true scope of human military capability. Orbital defense platforms that had been dismissed as communication satellites revealed sophisticated weapon arrays. The peaceful transportation networks shown in their initial surveys highlighted as military supply lines. Even the International Space Station, which had been described as a research facility, was deploying weapons systems. How is this possible? Ambassador Zitkar demanded. Our scans, our analysis, everything indicated you were a peaceful species. Colonel Thompson's laugh was harsh and utterly without humor. Ambassador, humans learned a long time ago that the best way to avoid a fight is to be so dangerous that nobody wants to start one. You saw what you wanted to see, a peaceful species. We showed you exactly that. On the tactical displays, they watched as Earth's hidden military assets engaged the Saktar raiders. What had appeared to be 3 primitive raider ships suddenly found themselves facing a coordinated response from weapons systems they hadn't even detected. Human fighters, sleek, deadly craft that bore no resemblance to the peaceful exploration vessels shown during first contact, swarmed from concealed bases. But your literature, your entertainment, your culture, everything suggests you fear war, that you seek to avoid it, Dr. Miratel protested, her crystalline form resonating with confusion. We do fear war, Doc, Thompson replied, his attention split between the conversation and the tactical displays. Any sane species should. But fearing something and being unprepared for it are 2 very different things. Humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We just made sure you only noticed the soft speaking part. The space battle above was brutally efficient. The Saktar ships, designed to intimidate primitive species, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by human vessels that combined advanced technology with tactical doctrines honed over millennia of warfare. Within 30 minutes, 2 of the 3 Raider ships had been destroyed, and the third was attempting to flee. "This is Captain Morrison to ground control," came the voice over the facility's communication system. "Hostile vessels neutralized. We have survivors from the damaged orbital platform, and rescue operations are underway. The fleeing Raider ship is being pursued by Destroyer Squadron 7. Secretary General Chun turned to the stunned Council delegation. "This is who we really are, Ambassador. We are a species that desperately wants peace, but we are also a species that has learned that peace is only possible when you're strong enough to defend it." Ambassador Zethkar's mind raced as he tried to process the implications. "Your entire presentation to the Council, was it all deception?" "Not deception," Chin replied carefully. "Selective truth. Everything we told you about human nature was accurate. We do prefer diplomacy. We do have extensive international cooperation. We have developed sophisticated conflict resolution mechanisms. But we also have this." She gestured toward the tactical displays showing the aftermath of the battle. Human rescue ships were already moving toward the damaged orbital platform, while military vessels established a defensive perimeter around Earth. The coordination was flawless, the response time incredible, and the effectiveness undeniable. Colonel Thompson checked his tactical display and made several quick communications. "Ma'am, we've got good news and bad news. Good news, the Saktar threat has been neutralized. Bad news, that wasn't a random raid. Intelligence suggests they were conducting reconnaissance for a larger force." "How large?" Chen asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer wouldn't be encouraging. "Best estimates suggest a full Saktar fleet, ma'am. Maybe 50 ships, including some of their larger battlecruisers. If they were testing our defenses, they know now that we're not the helpless primitives they expected." The implication hung heavy in the air. The Saktar wouldn't be discouraged by the loss of 3 ships. They would be intrigued. A species with advanced military technology was exactly the kind of challenge that would attract their attention. Dr. Miratel's form dimmed as she processed the situation. "Ambassador, we need to contact the Council immediately. If the Saktar are planning a major assault on Earth, the entire galactic community is at risk. They've been driven to the outer rim, but a successful campaign here could give them the resources to threaten core worlds again." "Agreed," Zethkar replied, though his thoughts were focused on a more immediate concern. "But first we need to reassess everything we thought we knew about human capabilities. Secretary General, what other selective truths should the Council be aware of?" Chen's expression was grim as she gestured toward the tactical displays. "Ambassador, what you just witnessed was a minimal response to a minor threat. If 50 Saktar ships are indeed coming to Earth, you're about to see capabilities that even we haven't had to use in several generations. The kind of capabilities that our military refers to as the nuclear option, though that particular term has become somewhat antiquated." Colonel Thompson's grin was absolutely predatory. "Ma'am, with respect, I think our alien friends are about to get a real education in human warfare. The kind of education that makes history books." As emergency communications flooded back toward Galactic Council space, carrying news of both humanity's deception and the impending Saktar threat, the Council delegation began to understand that their peaceful first contact mission had become something far more dangerous. They had come to welcome humanity into a civilized galactic community, only to discover that civilization and capability were not mutually exclusive. Earth was about to be tested by one of the most aggressive species in known space, and humanity was about to show both their guests and their enemies that a species could value peace precisely because they were exceptionally good at war. Hashtag the storm. Marines unleashed the Saktar battle fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a plague of metal locusts. 50 vessels strong, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed for terror and conquest. They had come expecting to find a primitive world ripe for plunder. What they found instead was a carefully prepared reception that would become legend throughout the galaxy. Admiral Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, Earth's newest and most advanced battlecruiser, watching the enemy formation on her tactical displays. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency of professionals who had trained for this moment their entire careers, even though most had hoped it would never come. "Admiral, we have positive identification on the Saktar fleet composition. reported Commander Jackson from the tactical station. 43 assault cruisers, 5 heavy battleships, and 2 of what appear to be their new Dreadnought-class vessels. Total estimated crew complement is approximately 60,000. Any response to our hails? Reeves asked, though she already knew the answer. Negative, ma'am. Standard Saktar doctrine. No communication except demands for surrender. Reeves nodded grimly. The Saktar weren't interested in negotiation. They were raiders and slavers who viewed other species as resources to be harvested. The fact that they had brought such a massive force suggested they intended to make Earth an example to the rest of the galaxy. Admiral, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Colonel Thompson approaching, now wearing full combat armor that made his already imposing figure even more intimidating. My Marines are in position and ready for deployment orders. Colonel, against a fleet of that size, even our most optimistic projections suggest significant casualties if we have to board their vessels. Thompson's scarred face split into a grin that would have terrified anyone who didn't know him. Ma'am, with all due respect, those projections are based on conventional boarding actions. What I have in mind is anything but conventional. On the civilian observation deck of the command center, the Galactic Council delegation watched in fascination and growing concern as human military efficiency transformed their peaceful first contact mission into something resembling a war council meeting. Ambassador Zethkar studied the tactical displays with growing unease. Secretary General Chun, surely diplomacy is still possible. Even the Saktar might be reasoned with if the proper approach is taken. Chen's response was immediate and final. Ambassador, the Saktar don't negotiate. They conquer. Your own records show they've enslaved or destroyed 17 civilizations. The time for words ended the moment they opened fire on our orbital platform. Dr. Miratel's crystalline form flickered with distress. But the casualty estimates for a direct confrontation are staggering. Both sides will suffer massive losses. Doctor, interrupted Captain Morrison, who had been monitoring the conversation, you're still thinking like diplomats. Humans learned a long time ago that the goal isn't to die for your cause. It's to make the other guy die for his. Before anyone could respond, the facility's emergency communication system activated. Admiral Reeves's voice filled the command center with calm authority. All stations, this is Admiral Reeves. The Saktar fleet has begun their approach and has deployed for planetary bombardment. All civilian populations in potential target zones have been evacuated to secure facilities. Military assets are authorized to engage with full force. Operation Thunderstrike is now in effect. The tactical displays suddenly came alive with activity as Earth's true military capabilities revealed themselves. What the Council had thought were communication satellites began moving with purpose, revealing themselves as weapons platforms. The research stations in the asteroid belt opened like metal flowers, deploying massive railgun systems that had been mining asteroids for decades while secretly preparing for exactly this scenario. My God, whispered Navigator Yithal, her insectoid features pale with shock. Those aren't mining operations. They're fortress positions. Colonel Thompson had moved to a secure communication terminal and was coordinating with his units throughout the solar system. Razor 1 through Razor 6, this is Thunder Actual. Execute Operation Devil Dogs on my mark. Remember, Marines, improvise, adapt, and overcome. Aura, the response that came back through multiple channels with a unified roar. Aura. Ambassador Zethkar turned to Secretary General Chun with a mixture of confusion and concern. What is Operation Devil Dogs? And what are Marines? Chen's expression was grim, but carried an undercurrent of fierce pride. Ambassador, you're about to witness something that hasn't been seen in the galaxy for a very long time. You're about to see why humans have a reputation for being impossible to defeat once we decide to fight. The space battle began with a display of firepower that stunned the Council delegation. Human ships that had seemed modest and peaceful during first contact revealed themselves as sophisticated warfare machines. Their hulls opened to deploy weapons systems that shouldn't have been possible given Earth's apparent technology level. The asteroid belt fortifications opened fire first, their railgun systems launching projectiles at significant fractions of the speed of light. The Saktar fleet, expecting primitive resistance, found themselves under assault from weapons that could punch through their armor as if it were paper. But the real shock came when the Marines went to work. What the Council thought were simple transport vessels suddenly revealed their true purpose as they swarmed toward the Saktar fleet. These weren't cargo ships. They were purpose-built assault craft designed to deliver the most dangerous individual warriors humanity had ever produced. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph came Colonel Thompson's voice over the communication system as his command ship approached the first Saktar battleship. Boys, those are some ugly ships. Let's go make them prettier with some high-explosive decorating. The first boarding pod impacts sent shockwaves through the Saktar fleet. The alien warriors, each standing over 2 meters tall and armed with weapons that could cut through steel, expected to face frightened primitives. Instead, they met human Marines who had trained for this scenario their entire lives. The footage coming back from the boarding actions was unlike anything in Galactic Council military records. Individual human soldiers, working in coordinated teams, systematically dismantled Saktar resistance with a combination of advanced technology, brutal efficiency, and what could only be described as controlled savagery. Contact front, came the voice of Sergeant Rodriguez through the combat feed. Multiple hostiles, corridor intersection, Alpha 7. Marines, light 'em up. The tactical display showed her squad's progress through the Saktar vessel. Where alien species typically required overwhelming numbers to board enemy ships, these Marines operated in small teams that seemed to accomplish the impossible through sheer audacity and firepower. Dr. Miratel watched in fascination and horror as the combat feeds showed individual humans engaging Saktar warriors in close combat. The aliens were larger, stronger, and armed with sophisticated weapons, but the humans fought with a combination of training, technology, and raw aggression that overwhelmed their opponents. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Individual combat efficiency at this level shouldn't be sustainable. The psychological stress alone should incapacitate them." Colonel Thompson, monitoring the action from his command position, heard her comment and laughed. "Doc, you're watching United States Marines. These people eat stress for breakfast and ask for seconds. Hell, half of them joined up because they were bored with peacetime." On the main tactical display, the progress was undeniable. Human boarding teams were systematically capturing Saktar vessels with a speed and efficiency that defied conventional military doctrine. But, more importantly, they were doing it while suffering minimal casualties, something that should have been impossible against such a fierce enemy. How are they achieving this level of success? Ambassador Zitkar demanded. The Saktar are experienced warriors. They've conquered dozens of worlds. Ambassador, replied Secretary General Chun, her voice carrying grim satisfaction. They've conquered worlds populated by civilized species who fight according to established military protocols. Marines don't fight according to anyone's protocols except their own. The combat feed showed exactly what she meant. Where other species might engage in honorable combat, following established rules of warfare, the Marines fought to win by any means necessary. They used their environment as a weapon, turned the enemy's technology against them, and employed tactics that were simultaneously brilliant and utterly ruthless. Tango down, came Corporal Williams's voice as his team cleared another corridor. "Jesus, Sarge, these guys are big, but they're dumb. It's like fighting really ugly furniture." The psychological impact on the Saktar was becoming evident as well. These weren't the terrified primitives they had expected to enslave. These were predators who fought with a joy that was almost alien in its intensity. The boarding actions were turning into slaughters as disciplined human teamwork overwhelmed individual Saktar strength. Admiral Reeves's voice came through the command center speakers. "All units, the enemy fleet is beginning to break formation. Several vessels are attempting to withdraw. Continue current operations. No enemy vessel leaves this system operational." The space battle had become a rout. Human vessels, working in coordinated battle groups, systematically destroyed or captured Saktar ships with a precision that spoke of years of planning and preparation. The alien fleet, which had arrived expecting easy conquest, found themselves facing opponents who had turned warfare into a science. But the real revelation came when the Marines reached the Saktar command ship. "Thunder actual to command," came Colonel Thompson's voice, now broadcasting from inside the enemy flagship. We have control of the primary command deck. Resistance is, well, there isn't any resistance anymore. These guys aren't used to fighting people who fight back. Through the command ship's own communication system, they could hear the sounds of systematic capture operations. The Marines had not only boarded the vessel, they had taken it intact, along with its crew and all the intelligence data contained in its systems. Ambassador Zethkar stared at the tactical displays in stunned silence. In less than 4 hours, humanity had not only defeated one of the most feared military forces in the galaxy, they had done it while suffering fewer than 50 casualties. The Saktar fleet that had numbered 50 ships now consisted of wreckage, captured vessels, and a handful of crippled ships that would never threaten anyone again. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species achieves this level of military efficiency without what, Ambassador?" Secretary General Chun asked gently. "Without being monsters," Zethkar finished quietly. Chen's expression softened slightly. "Ambassador, we're not monsters. We're just very, very good at protecting what we love. And we love peace so much that we're willing to be absolutely brutal to anyone who threatens it." Colonel Thompson's voice came through the communication system one final time. "Command, this is Thunder Actual. The Saktar fleet has been neutralized. All enemy vessels are either destroyed or captured. Marine casualties are minimal. Mission accomplished." The silence in the command center was profound as the council delegation struggled to process what they had witnessed. They had come to Earth expecting to welcome a peaceful species into galactic civilization. Instead, they had discovered that humanity represented a form of military capability that the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. And somewhere in the depths of their minds, they began to wonder what other surprises this remarkable species might have in store for a galaxy that thought it understood the nature of warfare. #The Aftermath. New understanding 3 days after the Battle of Earth, as historians would later call it. The diplomatic facility had been transformed into something resembling a combination war college and cultural exchange center. The Galactic Council delegation found themselves surrounded by evidence of humanity's true nature. Tactical displays showing the captured Saktar fleet, intelligence reports revealing the scope of human military preparation, and, most disturbing of all, Marines who spoke casually about combat operations that had redefined galactic understanding of warfare. Ambassador Zethkar sat across from Secretary General Chun in the facility's main conference room, struggling to reconcile the peaceful diplomats he had first met with the terrifyingly efficient military force he had just witnessed. Around the table, representatives from both sides worked to forge a new understanding of what humanity's integration into galactic civilization would actually mean. "I must ask again," Zethkar said, his facial tendrils moving in patterns of barely controlled anxiety. "Was everything during our initial contact a deception?" Colonel Thompson, still wearing his combat armor despite the conclusion of hostilities, answered before Chen could respond. "Ambassador, everything we told you is true. We do prefer peace. We have developed sophisticated diplomatic institutions. We actively work to avoid conflict. The part we didn't mention is that we're also the most dangerous species you've ever encountered when someone forces us to fight." Dr. Miratel's crystalline form resonated with something that might have been fear. "Colonel, your casualties in that engagement were impossibly low. How do you account for such efficiency against a force that has conquered 17 civilizations?" Thompson's scarred face split into what was becoming his characteristic predatory grin. "Doc, those 17 civilizations fought like civilized beings. They followed rules. They showed mercy. They tried to minimize casualties. Marines don't fight civilized. We fight to win." The tactical displays around the conference room showed the aftermath of the battle. Of the 50 Saktar vessels that had approached Earth, 37 had been captured intact, 8 had been destroyed, and 5 had been so thoroughly disabled that they would never fly again. The human fleet had suffered damage to only 3 vessels, with no ships lost. But the numbers that truly shocked the council delegation were the casualty figures. The Saktar had lost over 40,000 warriors, with another 15,000 captured. Human losses totaled 43 killed and 112 wounded. Such a disparity wasn't just unlikely. According to all galactic military experience, it should have been impossible. "Ow!" Ambassador Zethkar asked simply. "Your technology is advanced, yes, but not overwhelmingly superior to the Saktar. Your ships are well-designed, but not invincible. Yet you achieved a victory that defies all military precedent. Secretary General Chun activated a holographic display that showed various aspects of human military doctrine. Ambassador, you're thinking about this the wrong way. You're focused on hardware, ships, weapons, technology. That's not why we won. Then why? Dr. Miratel asked, her form flickering with curiosity. Because, Chin continued, every other species in the galaxy fights according to established rules of warfare. There are protocols for ship-to-ship combat, accepted standards for boarding actions, recognized limits on the use of various weapons. Humans learned those rules and then spent centuries figuring out how to break them. Captain Morrison, who had been quietly observing the discussion, spoke up. The Saktar expected us to fight like everyone else. Standoff engagements, formal boarding procedures, honorable individual combat. Instead, we used their expectations against them. Thompson nodded approvingly. Exactly. When they deployed for planetary bombardment, they exposed their formation to our asteroid belt defense systems. When they tried to respond to our fighter attacks, we had Marines boarding them from multiple vectors simultaneously. Every time they tried to follow established military doctrine, we had already anticipated it and prepared countermeasures. The implications of this revelation settled heavily on the Council delegation. They represented a galactic civilization that had achieved peace through mutual understanding and shared military conventions. The idea that a species might deliberately ignore those conventions, not out of savagery, but as conscious military doctrine, was profoundly disturbing. But, surely, Navigator Yithel interjected, her insectoid features expressing concern. Such tactics require extensive preparation. You couldn't have developed these capabilities solely for the Saktar threat. The silence that followed her observation was telling. Secretary General Chun exchanged glances with Colonel Thompson before answering carefully. Navigator, humanity has been at war with itself for most of our recorded history. We fought with swords and spears, gunpowder and cannons, aircraft and missiles, atomic weapons and orbital bombardments. We've had thousands of years to perfect the art of warfare because we've had thousands of years of practice. Dr. Miratel's form dimmed as she processed this information. You're saying that your entire species evolved in a state of constant conflict. Not constant, Chin corrected, but frequent enough that every generation has had to learn how to fight. We've developed weapons that can destroy planets, biological agents that can eliminate entire ecosystems, and information warfare techniques that can collapse civilizations without firing a single shot. And yet, Thompson added with grim humor, we're also the species that invented the Geneva Convention, the United Nations, and international law. We became good at making war because we desperately wanted to stop making war. The paradox was staggering to the Council representatives. Every other species they had encountered had achieved interstellar travel by transcending their violent natures. Humanity appeared to have achieved it while simultaneously perfecting violence to an art form. Ambassador Zethkar asked the question that had been haunting him since the battle ended. What does this mean for the Galactic Council? For the peace we've maintained for over 1,000 years? Secretary General Chin's response was immediate and reassuring. It means that peace just became a lot more secure. Ambassador, we told you the truth during our first contact. We genuinely preferred diplomatic solutions to every problem. But now every aggressive species in the galaxy knows that attacking Council members means facing human military response. You're offering to serve as the Council's military arm? Dr. Miratel asked, uncertainty clear in her harmonics. Colonel Thompson laughed, but there was no humor in it. Doc, we're not offering anything. We're telling you that this is what's going to happen. Any species that threatens Council members threatens us. Any species that threatens us learns why that's a really bad idea. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the captured Saktar command ship. Admiral Reeves appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but satisfied. Secretary General, we've completed our interrogation of the Saktar command staff. What we've learned changes everything about the galactic situation. Report, Admiral, Chun ordered. Ma'am, the Saktar weren't acting independently. They were testing human capabilities on behalf of what they call the Shadow Alliance, a coalition of aggressive species that have been planning a coordinated assault on Council space. The attack on Earth was reconnaissance in force. The implications hit the Council delegation like a physical blow. Ambassador Zethkar's facial tendrils went rigid with shock. How many species? How large is this alliance? According to Saktar intelligence, they represent at least 12 different species and control over 300 worlds in the Outer Rim territories, Admiral Reeves reported. They were planning to move against the Council core worlds within the next year. The silence in the conference room was profound as everyone absorbed this information. The Galactic Council's policy of peaceful expansion and diplomatic integration had created exactly the kind of target that aggressive species found irresistible: a rich, technologically advanced civilization that appeared to have no effective military defense. Well, Colonel Thompson said into the silence, his voice carrying grim satisfaction, "Looks like the Marines are going to be busy." Secretary General Chun turned to Ambassador Zethkar with an expression that was both sympathetic and determined. "Ambassador, I'm afraid your choice has just become very simple. You can accept humanity as we actually are, a species that loves peace enough to be exceptionally good at war. Or you can face this Shadow Alliance alone." "What are you proposing?" Zethkar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Full military integration," Chun replied without hesitation. "Human defensive doctrines, human training programs, and human marine stationed throughout Council space. In exchange, we want full membership, including voting rights and access to all Council technologies." Dr. Miratel's form flickered with what might have been hope. "And you would genuinely work within Council frameworks? You wouldn't simply take control?" Colonel Thompson's expression softened slightly. "Doc, we got 47 different countries on Earth that somehow manage to work together when it matters. Adding 47 different species to the mix isn't going to be any harder. We're good at cooperation. We've just never had to cooperate with people who weren't also good at fighting." The negotiation continued for several more hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Galactic Council needed humanity's military capabilities, and humanity needed the Council's advanced technologies and diplomatic networks. More importantly, both sides faced a common threat that neither could address alone. As the session concluded and preliminary agreements were signed, Ambassador Zethkar found himself in private conversation with Secretary General Chun. "I have to ask," he said quietly, "do you really prefer peace? Or was that simply another tactical deception?" Chun's smile was gentle but carried undertones of steel. "Ambassador, we prefer peace so much that we're willing to kill anyone who threatens it. The greatest tragedy of the human experience is that we became so good at war because we wanted so desperately to end it." She gestured toward the tactical displays showing the captured Saktar fleet and the intelligence data revealing the Shadow Alliance threat. "But perhaps that tragedy is about to become the galaxy's salvation. Because now, for the first time in galactic history, civilization has protectors who are more dangerous than any threat they might face." Ambassador Zethkar left Earth with a fundamentally changed understanding of human nature and galactic politics. The species he had come to welcome into a peaceful confederation had instead revealed themselves as the most formidable military force in known space, one that preferred diplomacy but excelled at warfare. More importantly, they had revealed that the galaxy's long peace was about to be tested by forces that the Council couldn't face alone. Humanity's integration into galactic civilization wouldn't be the gentle process of cultural exchange that Zethkar had envisioned. Instead, it would be the transformation of a peaceful confederation into something unprecedented, a galactic alliance protected by warriors who love peace enough to fight for it. As a ship departed Earth system, carrying news that would reshape galactic civilization, Ambassador Zethkar reflected on the human saying that Colonel Thompson had shared with him: "If you want peace, prepare for war." The galaxy was about to learn the truth of those words, taught by a species that had spent millennia perfecting both arts in equal measure. The age of peaceful expansion was over. The age of defended peace was about to begin. And it would be defended by Marines who understood that sometimes the only way to preserve civilization was to be willing to unleash controlled savagery on anyone foolish enough to threaten it.